I'm trying to code, and no, this isn't clickbait. Me and my friends actually coded for 24 hours straight. Well, most of us did. Anyway, I didn't drink any caffeine or even eat food the entire time, and only spent around 10 minutes of my overall break just for the bare necessities. We started at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd say not too early, not too late. The crazy people who decided to do it with me were Dean, Isaiah, and Arya. Dean was doing Godot in Unity, Arya just Godot, and Isaiah was going all out on Blender. Since Dean and Arya were still beginners, this would be the perfect time for them to learn the basics of their game engines. I decided to stick with my current project and just work on Shadow Walker. Just to clarify some rules, we decided on a 1-hour break, which Isaiah instantly decided not to use until the very end. The 1 hour could be broken up into as many small parts as possible, mainly to go to the bathroom and stuff like that. Another one was the punishment. If you gave up or fell asleep, you would have to say 3 words to a random stranger of the winner's choosing. With that, the challenge began. To start it all off, I got right into remaking the entire main menu. A few weeks before the challenge began, I had asked some game testers online what they thought I should do to the game. One guy played it and got really confused about the buttons and all that. Main menus are one of the first things you see, so I decided to try to make it as readable as possible. To do this, I allowed the player to walk around in it, which would make it really obvious where he could or couldn't go. Then I replaced the buttons with actual guns, and stat options with running shoes and springs. After finishing up the main menu, I was completely warmed up and ready to go. The beginning was when I was at my most productive, so I decided to begin another big task. I started work on the Arctic snow biome, and made a few tiles in Aseprite. They looked great, until I actually put them into the game, and it kinda looked like Discord on bright mode. So I decided to remake the snow, but then the snow was kind of a bit too dark, but it worked, so I decided to move along. We were streaming the whole thing, so I had a little check-in to see if anyone was watching, and to my surprise, some of you guys actually were. A bunch of you guys started to give me some interesting suggestions, and one of them was to add post-processing to the game right away. I was going to save it for later, but hey, who can resist adding post-processing to a beta game? I turned up all the settings to the max, and it looked, interesting. I ultimately dialed it a bit down, and I think it makes the game look quite a lot better. After this, it started to get dark outside. It'd been about 10 hours, and I knew this was going to be the tricky part of the challenge. I ignored the mild pains in my back and neck,
All I know is pain.
and instead focused on making a boss for the snow biome, the Snow Boss. Anyway, it complemented the enemies of the biome by creating snowmen. The snowman made little snowball enemies that kamikaze into you, making you slow down and take damage. I also made the boss shoot ice spikes at you and rush into you like the Leaf Boss. After I'd finished the main parts for the Snow Boss, I checked in to see what the rest of the people are doing. Isaiah had finished work on some cool renders, one of a computer and another of a box on a park bench. Dean was finishing up his slime game, which is actually surprisingly fun for how simple it is. He put most of his effort into the movement system, and it really worked well in my opinion. Arya had finished his 3D rocket ship shooter game, and was just starting work on a new project. Judging from how well I was able to do in the first part of the challenge, I think I could easily work 14-hour days. The only problem was, this wasn't a 14-hour challenge, and the sky was getting darker and darker. Before this challenge, whenever I tried to pull an all-nighter, I'd fail at around 3 AM from pure exhaustion. But this time, I had to stay awake the whole time. To take my mind off sleeping, and to mix it up a little bit, I decided to make a plan for the game called a GDD. Basically, it would help me out to understand what I needed to make for the game, so I would hopefully not suffer from scope creep. So if you guys want to give me some suggestions for what to put in there, let me know. I decided on making a swamp biome. I wanted the swamp biome to have acid snails that left trails all over the place to make it difficult to traverse. I also wanted it to look good, so I went to Aseprite and made the snail enemies and tiles. I put them in, and I'd say they do the job, but I'll be editing them later. Instead of focusing on the art, I made the snails actually move around. The snail scripts were pretty similar to the zombies, so it didn't take very long to make. The main difference I'd say between the snails and zombies would be that the snails only attack you if you're right next to them. Otherwise, they leave you alone. I don't remember much about making the swamp boss. All I know is I kind of rushed it, and I'll definitely be able to fix that later. Oh, and also one of my friends told me to call him Swampy, so I put that in. During these hours was the slowest filling part of the whole challenge. For the first 14, I would work on something, and a few hours would magically pass. But from 1 to 5 AM, 10 or 20 minutes felt like hours, and it started to become discouraging to look at the time. Then somewhere around 5 o'clock, I asked Dean what he's making, and he didn't respond. Now that Dean wasn't responding, we thought either his headset had died or he fell asleep. So we waited for another 30 minutes. After that, we kinda knew Dean had lost the challenge, but we kept going anyway. Finally, nearing the very end, the sky started to brighten. My brain felt so much better when I saw that. I worked on a few bugs and optimized the code, so one of the live viewers could try out the newest demo of Shadow Walker. Isaiah kept doing Blender animations, but I think he was starting to get kinda tired and slowed down at making them, and Arya was just barely working at that point. Our motivation at this point was pretty low and the work output was near zero, but it wasn't quite perfectly zero. One of the very last things I did was start work on the Shadow Biome, a dark, spooky place that'll act as the finale to the whole game. During this hour, Isaiah used his break, since surprisingly he actually succeeded in not using any of them during the whole entire challenge. So then it was just me and Arya. To make matters even worse, Arya left early as well, since he had saved around half an hour. I was the only remaining developer after 24 hours of pure work. This challenge somewhat broke my brain when it came to time. It felt really weird. It made me think of all the things I do, and made me kind of question my routine in a way I hadn't thought about previously. It made me realize that 24 hours is really not that much time. I would absolutely recommend this to most game developers to try at least once in their life. Just don't pull a Dean. See ya.